It seems like I've been apologizing for my activities in music since the very beginning. As a kid in first grade, I got teased for having to go home after school to practice the piano instead of playing with the neighborhood kids all afternoon. When I fell in love with jazz in the 8th grade, I remember being surprised that not all of my peers shared my affection for that music, which became clearer still as I got into high school and experienced my town's focus on athletics over the arts. But it was after graduating from college that I started to really understand the depth of the issue. As I started my career as a professional musician, I would get hired to play or compose music in a variety of settings. And it was obvious that playing jazz was fairly low on my employer's wish list. Indeed, it seems like writing and playing jazz, a skill set that I had devoted so much time and resources to develop, was a skill set that commanded very little economic value. And while I would have not have thought this possible way back in 1980, its economic value would continue to decline as my career went on. The sad fact is that music of content gathers little respect in our current culture. You can watch, as with each passing decade, pop music in America devolves more and more, with each incarnation stripping away more and more elements of value. Let me state here that the larger issue here is not about my career or my desire for jazz or classical music to reign supreme and sell millions of records. And yes, in my naivete, I do hold that desire. The larger concern is the deleterious effect that our coarse artistic culture is having on our society at large. I don't have to preach to the readers of this publication about the values that an understanding of the arts bring to a young and developing mind. Many of you know that far better than I and have seen it up close, how music can change a young person's life for good. But it goes beyond our schools producing new jazz musicians. Jazz could disappear tomorrow and life would go on. We really don't need it. But what we do need are people that can problem solve, people that can see shades of gray, people that have empathy, people that understand nuance, people that can work together, people that can understand delayed gratification, people that know how to set short and long-term goals. All this and more is what we are losing when we deny students substantive exposure to an arts education. But you all know this. You all know how music programs are getting decimated by budget cuts at an alarming rate all over this country. The question becomes, what now? And while I'm tempted to go full-on Howard Beale on the problem, Google it, kids, that may not be the most persuasive solution. This problem was not created overnight, and it will not be solved quickly. I remember my dad, who was a conservative guy and loved the idea of getting his taxes cut. But he said that Prop 13, which was passed in 1978, was going to be a real problem for the schools in California. And boy, was he right. I think it's up to all of us to take small steps on a daily basis to bring this problem to light. Did your kid make the honor band? Why wasn't that listed in the school paper? Did your band place well at a recent festival? Why wasn't that covered in the local paper? Did one of your students work hard to master a difficult passage? Give them praise in class. Post it on your Facebook page. Acknowledging achievement, that's important. But also, sometimes you got to call out the bad stuff too. Did somebody miss rehearsal without a really good excuse? You got to call him out. And not just the director. The whole band needs to hold that guy accountable. How dare you miss rehearsal? This is music, man. This is important. Set up a culture of excellence, of high expectations. Do you have a friend that steals music off the internet? Do we really have to explain again that this is wrong? And mom and dad, exactly when was the last time you bought a CD? You can't listen to your old stuff forever, And speaking of accountability, imagine the impact of every kid in the music program, along with their parents, marching into a district board meeting to demand, how dare you cut our program? Do you have any idea what you've done? Because, many of them, they don't. I believe that many administrators only have a rudimentary understanding of what an arts education can achieve. These administrators, they do have a tough job trying to make their numbers crunch, no doubt about it. But it's squeaky wheel time, folks. And we as musicians tend to have an inherent response to just go inward with our problems and not make waves. But this approach has brought us away from the public focus for too long. Music and the arts in general are much more than an extracurricular activity or some cheap entertainment at halftime. We need to step up and reclaim our place in the culture. It's time to push back.